Hey everyone, welcome to the webinar. Hey, this is gonna be fun. This is all about customizing the buyer's journey, customizing our marketing automation, customizing Pardot. If that's the platform you're using, that's the one I'm showing today. We're gonna have a lot of fun. And really it's all about understanding that our buyers, there's numerous people. You know these photos back here? These are all the numbers we're looking at in spreadsheets all the time. They're not numbers, they're people with hopes and dreams and aspirations and all sorts of goodness. So we want to be able to customize the journey to them. I was just on a podcast the other day, a fantastic individual, was chit-chatting, learning all about the fact that, you know what, we even just talking about the buyer in the first person or just saying, hey, what would our buyer do here? How can we help our buyer out here is way better than saying, how can I advance my nurturing automation right now? How could I nurture people better, right? So and I'll look up who that was, but it was a fantastic episode. It's not out yet. It will be out soon. But what a great reminder to use the word customer in your sentence. It gets rid of politics and everything, all right? Let's get started. This relates to CSI number 9. If you're on the CSI roadmap, if you're not, we'll get into that in a second. Hey, if you haven't met me already, there's a nice, super serious, happy, smiley face photo of me. Sans hat. 3 quick numbers to introduce you to me by. 12 number of years I've been working with Pardot, give or take. It kind of blurs. I don't know if anyone can relate to it blurring. And 2,600 number of Pardot implementations Cheshire Impact has done. And I say these 2 numbers to really just give you a sense for it. All of these things we're talking about are strategies that we have seen proven. And the pathways, the roadmaps, the different recommendations, the success stories all come from everyone that we work with. And if you're listening to this and we work with you, awesome. Share your success stories with us so we can share them with other people. And we can all learn together from this thing. So that's where those come from. Finally, number 3, any guesses what that is? Normally I have a number in there about skydiving. Normally I have a number there about climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. But unfortunately, a lot of those plans are kind of on hold right now. So I added a new number, and what we do is I try to update that number every time we do one of these presentations. We typically have a webinar at Chesh once a week because we love it. Let's be honest, because I love it. Number 3, any guesses? Throw them in the webinar chat if you have any guesses. Finally, Cheshire Impact, more on us later. We like to talk about the company and the business stuff all at the end after the resources section. Pets, great guess. Nope, not pets. Though if you count children, yes. All right. 3 is the number of times I've climbed Mount Monadnock recently. So been able to scoot out early morning, do a quick climb. It's a little mountain as mountains go, but it's really nice. It's in New Hampshire, and you can kind of see Boston on a good day, the ocean on a good day. But it's one of those things where I can get to it in about an hour, and it's like my Kilimanjaro training. So I've been climbing it almost every week the past couple of weeks, and each time has been a different trail up and a different trail down. So there's like many different trails. So I'm just having fun with that. Wanted to share that with you all. All right. Oh, you love Monadnock. Awesome, Gina. Awesome. Do you have a favorite trail? Do you have a favorite trail? Do you have a least favorite trail? The White Dot Trail gets a lot of flack. Yeah. Oh, in a good way or a bad way? White Dot. I see White Dot. It's popular. In a good way. Awesome. Awesome. So here's what we're talking about today. Here is what we're talking about. Christina, you'll have a chance to climb the mountain. Don't you worry. We'll have to have some marketing summit or something with the meeting on top of the mountain. There's only one bar, so we'll have to download things ahead of time. Today's journey, what are we going to talk about? It's advanced dynamic content is the feature in Pardot, but there's some strategies we want to talk about beforehand. We also want to talk about some success stories. Why? Because they're actually your inspiration, right? Things that you see other people actually be successful at are things we can copy, beg, borrow, and steal from and use them in our own marketing. So that's why we're going to do that. CSI, do you know your score? We're going to talk about the marketing automation roadmap so you understand where you fit in that spectrum. And then finally, at the end, we're going to hop into Pardot. Cool. All right. Oh, you know what? I'm ahead of myself. This is not even an agenda. What am I doing? Anyways, these are questions. I just told you the agenda. Real quick for me, in the webinar chat, throw some answers down here. Has anyone used marketing automations feature advanced dynamic content in your Pardot account? If you have Pardot or some other tool, have you used advanced dynamic content? Do you know what it is? These kind of things help me customize my webinar for you. I see not yet. I've seen yep. And what kind of things you're doing. Definitely share those with people So like, oh, we're doing this, we're doing that. Hey, no judgment. We're all trying to get there. A lot of people haven't done this one yet. So if you haven't done it yet, don't worry. It's one of those things that people eventually get to. Sometimes you just need a little inspiration to get to. Dynamic content Marketo. Yeah. Okay. Cool. 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 I see some not yet's. Awesome. And we're here. So we're probably interested in finding out, what does this thing actually do? Right. I'm ahead of myself. It was good coffee. I already talked about the agenda, success stories, personalization strategies, a little bit about decision trees, and then we're just gonna get into Pardot. I'm gonna cancel out of this slide deck, hop into Pardot. Lightning, nonetheless. I did for a moment go to pardot.com like an OG, and then I realized, nope, I gotta go to Lightning. Let's go to Lightning. So I went to Lightning. So I'll show you some of that stuff in there, and we can get to it. See, a question: what's the difference between dynamic content, advanced dynamic content, the new dynamic content you can build with HTML? Yeah, great question. Great question. From a very basic standpoint, uh, when you call dynamic content, what that is it's really like swapping a field out in an email, right? So in an email, throwing in first name, you can consider that dynamic content, but Pardot calls this feature we're talking about today advanced dynamic content. So we just, borrowed that language. What that does is it allows you to drop whole blocks of HTML in there. Now, with the new dynamic content, that's a great question. And I think I need to catch up a little bit more on the answer with that. But from what I've seen so far, because I've seen some demos of it, we've tinkered around with it, you get a little more logic options. You'll see the logic options in the advanced dynamic content are kind of straightforward. You can make something show up if a field says this or field says that. You don't really have the if-then statement. But the new dynamic content, you can start using the handlebar language and really get customized. So it's almost like you have your own if-then statements built in and nestled in for the different things that show up in the advanced dynamic content, right? So to summarize, regular dynamic content, that would just be a field that gets pulled in and out. You can do lots of things with that in emails and landing pages. But advanced dynamic content it could be a field, but it could be a whole block of HTML. So that's really what we're going to focus on today. That was a freaking great question. So if you don't already have a book, we totally need to send you one, or some kind of prize if you already have a book, because that was a badass question. I love that. So good. All right. On with the show. Look at that. Anthony, you're ahead of us here, but let's just go ahead and talk through it, right? Let's talk through, focus more now on the advanced side, right? The advanced dynamic content. Here, in just a couple examples here, right? So your ideal customer receives your email. What is changing? Well, you could change the header graphic. You could change that like welcome image at the top so that it relates to them. If they're in banking, you could have a picture of a bank on the top. And it's the difference between, let's say, just an email with some text that changes, like, "Hi, Casey, I know you're the CMO at this company at Cheshire Impact," right? Dropping in some text. This thing goes, okay, text is cool, and you could still do that. You can do these in conjunction, right? You could still change up some text. Then you can drop in whole different images. The benefit of that is, whether it's a landing page, which we'll talk about next, or email, it makes it look like it's a completely different email, as opposed to when you change some words. Sometimes people know, okay, they're kind of dropping in specifics here, but when even the header image changes or the call to action at the bottom changes based on the industry, that really gets people by surprise, and they think that campaign is probably specifically for them, or at least their industry, which gives them some real confidence in what you're sending. You see conversion rates skyrocket using this stuff. Same idea with a website. The hero banner, that's what I like to call it. There's other names for it, but it's that image at the top of your website. You can change that, and Citrix did, and a couple other people did. We're going to show you some of their examples, what they did, as well as what some of our customers did, and they just change it up. So you go to the site, and even try it. Go to Citrix, go to some of these sites, and if you just see like the standard Citrix, that's one thing. But if you are known, or if they knew your industry, you might show up in education, or you might show up in health and life sciences or finance, depending on. So they're just changing those header images. And note, not only are they changing the header images, but they're also changing like the call to action. It's not just a random blue button that goes to the same place. It goes to a case study for that industry. And you can see the stats, right? They listed on their study 133% more conversions from doing this. which I think is like a drop in the bucket. All right. So to prepare for advanced dynamic content, we will get to that next. Let me just answer a quick question here. Does dynamic content JavaScript have any limitations in email clients? That's a great question. Well, it's before, because it's Pardot, it's before it gets to them, right? So it doesn't have to load separately there. Pardot's going to send it separately. So you don't have to worry about, now graphics may or may not load, as all email may or may not do. So if they're not trusted or they have images blocked, you still have to consider the fact that they may not see all the images. You still plan for that. But the cool thing with the dynamic content on emails or advanced dynamic, we'll just call it ADC, or if I say dynamic content today, just assume I'm talking about the one with the A in it. The good news is they're doing it pre-send. So when it gets sent out, it's sent out based on whoever's receiving it. So it doesn't have to have any sort of like JavaScript load thing happening on the email side, which is good. If that's your question, or if you're asking, can I drop in some cool JavaScript in the email? Does it have limitations? There are some. If that's your question, let me know and I can follow up with you. I have a list of some of those things. But typically, if you're just sending it, it's just whatever you see is going to change, and that's what's most important. You still want to send something that's like somewhat static, but in this case, you don't have to worry about. It'll show up the way you want it to. Good question. Cool. All right. Hey, has anyone seen this before? And I know we just had some SpaceX rocketry happening. And does anyone know how many SpaceX launches happened this week? Quiz question. Does anyone know how many times SpaceX launched a rocket this week? It is not a trick question. And so as you throw it in the webinar chat, what your guess is for how many launches they've had this week. And I'll give you a rolling 7-day period as well, if you'd like. Cool. The answer is actually 2. And this surprised me as well. Everyone knows about the, the manned mission, right? Where we sent 2 astronauts from the US up to the space station. Well, guess what? A second one just happened yesterday. YouTube was showing me, oh, by the way, 8 hours ago, SpaceX launched another satellite, another Falcon into orbit with some satellites on it. And like a lot of people cared, nerds cared, I cared, but it's like, whoa, 2 in a week. And it's normal now for people, which is exciting. So, but these things don't happen overnight and you got to have a plan. So what I have here is the plan that NASA had when they landed on the moon. And what's cool is they had a big checklist, but they also had this really cool graphic that shows step 64, step 64 here, step 65, 66, commander transfer to landing module, right? Those kind of things. Because everything needs to happen in order. If you do that right, you get to the moon and back safely with some rocks, right, for your collection. If you don't do it in order, you fire the thruster, and then the commander goes here, and that you could end up in outer space, and that would be like a tragedy, right? So we don't want our marketing to be a tragedy. And so there is an order to the chaos. One of the things that I found is that no one really talks about a roadmap. Does anyone know about this, by the way? Because if you already know about this, definitely throw out some shouts in the chat. It'll help entertain you while I tell you about it for the 3rd time if you've already heard this. But what we created was a roadmap, okay? And it's a roadmap of the 10 features in Pardot tied to the strategies of marketing automation that you should totally be using and can be using. And there's at least 10 of them. There's 10 major groups that a lot of even little features fit into. But they're in order, right? And you need to address them in order. But nobody does this. Nobody talks about it. The product people don't talk about it. Most partners don't. I once saw another partner put out a content piece that said, here's the 3 most unused features in Pardot you should totally check out. Someone else asked a question the other day saying, what cool feature should I try out next in Pardot? It's like, okay, I get it. It's fun to sort of just try things out and around. But the problem is you run into things like the times that I've been asked to set up multi-touch tracking or B2B marketing analytics. And yet we don't have any campaigns done. We don't have any touches, right? You can't do multi-touch tracking if you don't have any touches, right? So that's just a simple example. But it's to the point that if you go and do these things in order, each step gets easier and easier and easier. It's like a snowball. So what we have is we have this thing called the Cheshire Success Index. We go through it, and it's a 25-minute conversation. We'll talk about how to sign up for it at the end. It's free, right? We're not trying to sell something here. I just want you to know where you're at, because at the end of this assessment, 10 questions, you either say 1 if you're totally doing it, 0 if you're not doing it, 0.5 if you're kind of doing it. And at the end of this thing, you have a number between 0 and 10. Has anyone done this? If you've done this, what's your CSI number? Be proud. It's okay. You're working on it. If it's a 10, if it's a 0, if it's a 3, it's great to know what your number is. And so at the end of this assessment, you'll know, okay, I'm a 3 out of 10. And then you'll know what your very next step is because it's your lowest number that's incomplete. And you go from there and from there and from there and from there. And you slowly work your way up to a 10. And then you're just rocking it, right? So that's what this thing is. We'll talk more about it later. But the reason I bring it up is because there's this pathway here. And yep, there's the book. If you haven't seen this already, my book on marketing automation, I think at one point there was only 12 copies left, at least for the US Amazon account. Brent, how are we doing in Australia? You have to let me know if there's a run on copies there too. But it was down to like 2 copies in Canada. But there's a way we can get you a copy of this book. We'll put that at the end, and we'll talk more about it. But one of the things, the book has this roadmap in it. And so this roadmap is important. And the reason we bring this up is because today's webinar, do you know where it's at? Can you see it? Can you find it? It's number 8, CSI number 8. Oh, sorry, number 9, advanced dynamic content. So that means there's a few things that happen before you technically want to start building this. And that's okay, because at least you're here to learn about this and know where you're at. And then if you get the roadmap done, you'll know what the steps you need to take to get there. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go over the CSI question, because each one of these things has a question, right? That's how you get the 1, the 0, or the 0.5. And from there, we'll actually talk about some of the prerequisites that you want to set up before doing ADC. Okay? So if we're doing the CSI together, and I'm happy to do this with you too, we're going through all these different questions. We're asking, hey, you doing this? You doing this in Pardot? You doing this? Question number 9 comes up, and I will say, do you automatically, by the way, those here, answer this question. Yes, no, kinda, right? That's like a 1, a 0, or 0.5. Or give yourself a score in the chat so you let me know where you're at with that. Oh, wow. 3 paperbacks left in Australia. That is awesome. That is awesome. Okay, Jake, yes to web, no to email. Got it. So what we do is we say, okay, do you automatically change web or email content based on the recipient segment? And so those listening, Jake, you said yes to web, no to email. So it sounds like you could still do something with email. So what would you give yourself on that? Probably 0.5. That's usually a reminder to come back and go, oh, there's one more thing I can build out in here. So that makes it a 0.5. Test, you just put a 0 in that particular column. Totally cool. And you know, okay, I want to come back to this. Sometimes people put a star next to it because the ADC is a lot of fun. Yes to email, no to web. All right. So what did you all put for that? 0.5, 1, 0. Now you get a sense for how you do the whole CSI. Now here's a couple different things we got to talk about. In order to get advanced dynamic content, there's some CSIs earlier in the process that we want to make sure we address. CSI number 1 is all about personas and segmentation, understanding who your buyers are, and then getting those buyers into segments in Pardot. The reason why is because you're going to want to identify where people are at, what kind of groups they are, so that by the time you get to advanced dynamic content, you'll know very well what different kind of dynamic things you want to show. You'll say, okay, this buyer persona or this buyer segment should get this imagery and this call to action. This other group should get this, right? If you skip all that, you get to this particular step, you're like, who should I show this to? And then second of all, you're like, how do I show it? Where's the data? And that brings up CSI number 3. CSI number 3, in that particular one, we're focused. And by the way, there are webinars in each and one of these topics. So if you haven't already seen them, we do, several webinars every month, and we've already done each one of these. So they are recorded under CheshireImpact.com. In the resources under webinars, you'll see all the recorded webinars for these topics. So if you're like, I'm good on 1, but I'd like to make sure I'm good on 3, go check out the webinar. A whole hour of fun in the sun talking about that topic. But you want to make sure your data is good, right? Because what ends up happening is you need that data to be in Pardot, in your system, or some way of capturing it so that you can differentiate between who sees this content and who sees that content, right? Finally, CSI number 4 is all about gating content. Oh, it's a bug. Nothing like a bug flying around to make you look like you're slightly crazy because no one else can see the bug but you, right? So CSI number 4, it's all about having some kind of gated content, some kind of way of engaging with buyers. Why? Because this advanced dynamic content is going to increase your engagement. It's going to get people clicking on your calls to action. It's going to get people to your landing pages at that much more of a high conversion rate. So you got to have something ready for them. And you're going to want to have a couple different options already built out, because what's the use in just sending an ADC email out? You get a bunch of people clicking, they get to the landing page, and then they throw up because they don't like what they see and they leave, right? You don't want that. You want to use it the way it's supposed to be used. And so you need to have those different personas. You need to have the different segments set up. The data needs to be good. You need to have landing pages for them to go to. Got it? So that's the stuff we want to set up ahead of time. Kind of breezing through it, but that's because we go into depth on each one of those. Cool. Looking good on time. Let's talk success stories. Then let's get inside of Pardot and then talk resources. All right. Success story. I had to put this one at the front because there's a bunch of other success stories I'm going to talk about, but one of my favorites is of a client of ours in the healthcare industry. And it is such a cool story. You probably heard me talk about it all the time. I have to like hold on to not saying it on every single podcast interview I do with someone because they're like, oh, advanced, content. And I go, oh, I got to tell you this story, right? I gotta pace myself. So if you've heard the story, enjoy it again. But this is such a great example of one brilliant client, and then us being fortunate enough to collaborate with him on this. So we had a client that sells to, or have a client actually that sells to a healthcare space. They actually specifically sell to hospitals and different staff in the hospitals, but they noticed early on when they were doing CSI number one that public and private hospitals are like, that's the difference. The people in public versus private, they act differently, they buy differently. Those, the public hospitals, they have more beds and less money usually. The private, less beds, more money, but then they have different kind of doctors, and different doctors chose it for different reasons. So even the doctors in these places are different, right? So they realized that this was kind of the differentiator for them, and they wanted to talk to them in their own way. So what they did is they set up advanced dynamic content in email and on the web. Email, header images and call to action at the bottom, and on their website, hero image, the image at the top, and then all their calls to action were all set up just for A or B. Technically, it's A, B, and C. There was a default where if they don't know who you are, you just see the regular homepage. But if they found out you were in a public hospital or you're in the public health system, right? Maybe a satellite office or whatnot, everything changed, and they showed you even pictures of public hospitals. They showed you pictures of public hospital doctors, and the sign out front would say, whatever hospital it was, Chicago something something. The call to actions, they'd all be case studies from public hospitals and public health care providers. It was awesome. And just like that, if you said private, or if they knew you were private from the database, from Salesforce, whatever the case may be, then they showed you private hospitals, private call to actions, all that good stuff. Their emails were engaged heavily, that much more, and their whole site became much more interactive, much lower bounce rate. People were just staying, they're clicking, they're following through. You can see some great stats here that they were able to share with us. And I think that sales increase was actually a little bit more so even now as it keeps going on, because people keep coming back and doing that. But one of the things they shared with us is that a particular person purchased from this customer, and the new customer shared with the sales rep, who shared with the marketer, who shared with us. It's like telephone. And they're like, the reason we purchased was because you focused on public health, right? They said, like, you focus on public health. And everyone was like excited and laughing, because somewhere at that same time, someone else is deciding to sign up with these people because they focus in private health, right? It's amazing. It's amazing. One fun, interesting fact, though, they didn't have the data, right? So CSI number one, they knew the different groups. They didn't have the data. They didn't know everyone in their system, everyone in Pardot, public versus private, right away. So one of the things we came up with together was an email, simply offered. It said, hello, we have 2 centers of excellence, 2 resource centers full of information, case studies, all sorts of documentation. Yeah, no problem, Brian. Awesome. Thanks for swinging by. And so they had a private center of excellence and a public center of excellence. And all it said was click through to whichever one you want. Right? That's all it did. The email, that's no form needed or anything like that. Because what we did is we put Pardot redirects in the image and also the link off to each center of excellence. And if you clicked on the public one and off you went, we tagged you inside of Pardot as public. And if you clicked on the private one, we tagged you private. And then from that day on, you saw whatever they wanted you to see in terms of what your focus was. Beautiful. That is that. Like if you could set up that kind of thing, it doesn't have to be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 9 different options. It can literally be your 2 biggest segments, 2 biggest industries, 2 biggest buyer personas. You could have your beginner buyer and your advanced buyer. Beginner buyer says, I don't know what this is. Please help me. Can you call me? The advanced buyer says, don't you dare call me, but give me a spreadsheet that compares things, right? 2 different buyers, you could very easily offer them the same thing, but use the same real estate, the same real estate in your website, in your emails, that kind of thing. Awesome case study. Love these guys. So Citrix, I mentioned them before. They had one of the clearest case studies. And this one came from Kara. If you haven't followed her, totally recommend checking her out from Clearbit. She's just fantastic. Speaking of that, I should probably have her on the podcast. That's a great idea. See, you're all helping me come up with different ideas here. By the way, if you know a great guest for the podcast, the Hardcore Marketing Show, let me know about it. I'd be happy to try to line that sort of thing up. That'd be fun. So Citrix did the same thing. They said, okay, we have this major real estate, secure your data, drive innovation. But okay. Does that resonate with all of you here? Probably not, because it was for their IT solutions and also their financial IT solutions. Okay, so if you were financial IT solutions just now, you're probably like, whoa, sign me up. Or maybe you're just on Zoom and you're just like, loyal. But at least in this case, they're like, okay, that's one thing. What else could we do? And so let's just cycle through. Again, if they found out, kind of like the client we were working with, that they found out you were healthcare, boom, they knew that. Let's go back, right? So for IT solutions, they knew it was all about transforming business, like business transformation, and also securing the data, right? They knew that's important to IT. For healthcare, they knew mobility was important. So you can see they didn't just change the image, which is great. Even just changing the image is great. They actually changed the words, the copy, the call to action, because they know a different pain point across different industries. Same thing, education. Mobility is still important. And also empowering students, right? And so speaking to the teachers in their own language, doing it that way. All right, finally, the results. They've got a lot of great results here, a lot of great results. Lots of percentages, good things. We can summarize by saying good things. Anyone inspired? Anyone have any ideas from just seeing what they are from hearing or seeing what they've heard so far? What would you try? Throw some ideas down in the webinar chat. Here's the case for the client again. We'll skip that. Optimizely, get another case out of Kara, great analyst. Dynamic ABM and industry testing on Optimizely. Very cool stuff. I'm super huge on ABM this month. In fact, this month is ABM month for Cheshire Impact. We are just gonna be doing ABM every week. And so if you haven't already checked out your email, or if it's in your spam or wherever it's at, check it out. We actually have a webinar every week this month on ABM. There's this one. Next week is ABM plus Pardot, specifically ABM and Pardot, how to do things with an ABM sense in Pardot. Very tactical, practical. After that, we have another webinar. The future of ABM is coming up. And then also we're going to share some takeaways on our podcast. Good stuff. But ABM is huge, right? So Optimizely tested, hey, if we know someone is actually from a particular company, and you can't do this with every company. You could try, but let's focus on your top tier clients. Let's say you have 10 or 25 top tier clients. Okay, well then, why don't we have some dynamic content specifically for them? And look, they have the surface down there too, right? They're speaking their language. Cool idea. Same thing. Someone from Target Corporate gets on their site. Hey, Target, let's talk. We're here to help you. They're trying to win these people over. That is some super cool stuff. They also did industry. So if you weren't, you can do this too. You can do a tiered approach. Like if you know their particular name, you can show that. If you don't know the name, but you know their industry, you can show that. So there's all different kind of options you can do here. This one obviously was a travel theme. And they did all a bunch of different other industries that they used on it. So they saw a lot of clicks increase. And even more than the clicks was the conversions that were happening. On both their solutions page, just like shopping around, and also the try it out, the test it out call to action was huge too. So lots of cool results. Again, ABM or industry or both, or stacking it and comparing it, whichever data you have. Again, that's where the data comes in handy. Cool. How we doing? We're doing good on time. And so we could take a breath. How are we doing? Anyone have any questions so far? We talked about some success stories. Now we're going to jump into the deep end. It looks so beautiful though. Warm water, tropical water. We're going to jump in and just talk about a real quick slide on Pardot, what you can expect and look for in Pardot. And then we're going to bop out and just click around our own Pardot interface, talking through some ADC. Cool. All right. Seeing none, we shall carry on. Cool. So advanced dynamic content, and I could even put this one earlier probably in the future, but just to summarize the different kind of things you could do, right? Your emails, you can do a lot of different things. You can have the graphics change. You can have the message change. And then really customizing that call to action, you're going to see that across both of them. That's the magic, because that's the action they're going to take. If you know they're an industry, you know they're a target, you know what they're one of your key companies, you can really pop out to them in your call to action. Now, on the web and landing page side, it's all about the industries, the personas, that type of thing. And then finally, that hero banner. I love, mostly it's the call to actions. I mean, the hero banner is nice, especially if it has a call to action like Citrix had. But if it doesn't, if you just have a regular website, hero image, bunch of different things you can click on, make those things relevant to the people that are browsing. Cool. Alrighty. I'm going to transition right now here to another screen. So bear with me as I pull open, like a cooking show, I will pull up Pardot. All right. Any questions while I'm pulling up the screen? I had to log in again. The internet must have closed the window on me. But yeah, any questions? Otherwise, I will share the screen again, and you will see Pardot. All right. We see Pardot? Cool. Let's do it. So does anyone know where advanced dynamic content can be found? Any guesses? Throw them in the webinar chat. Any guesses? We can make this engaging. We can make this interactive. People are like, not sure. Oh, Jake, epic answer questions and answers. Yes, it is in content. Some of these things are worded in a way that you're like, where would that be at? But in this case, content is like the meat, is like the muscle of Pardot. And so that's where a lot of the things are going to be. And so it's right down there. Now notice, in their own way, they call it dynamic content. But really, if you were to buy it, or if you look at a comparison chart, buying different tiers of Pardot, they'll consider this stuff the advanced dynamic content. So I want to show you this because there's just a couple different fields and ideas of different things you can use. So first of all, let me just show you a fun example, and then I can show you some of the different things and different ways we use it. Okay, so we've got this page, right? And so this page was set up a little bit ago, and the idea was just to show people a demonstration of what it looks like to have advanced dynamic content. And so let's see here. Let's expand it so I can see everything. The window. Cool. So we basically asked a question, and we said, okay, who's your favorite superhero, right? And if they didn't tell us, we might just say Spider-Man was a good choice. You can see default content right here. Spider-Man was a good choice. Now, I might even change that, because a default choice like that, I might just say like, oh, you really should consider picking a superhero. But that's the idea. No matter what you do here, you can start out with a default option that says nothing, right? So your regular website. But in a form, if people chose what their superhero was, you can see if their answer was Spider-Man, they show this one. And they go, Spider-Man's a good choice. If they chose Batman, you show a little graphic. You could say, favorite movie. was a good choice, right? So we even got a little more dynamic text in there. So you can do, so notice this, right? You can stack. So you could say dynamic content, a whole block of HTML, and you can just name drop in there. Hey, Spider-Man is a good choice, Casey, that kind of thing. Batman. By the way, as I'm showing you this, who is your all favorite superhero? Throw your favorite superhero in the webinar chat. I'm curious. Make sure you put all panelists and all attendees so everyone else can see how the voting is going. I see Spider-Man, then the Hulk. Interesting. Got to be Spider-Man. Vince, like there's any question? Thor, Sam, I'm with you on Thor. Thor has a cool hammer. I use this for the podcast. Absolutely on Thor. Superwoman, she is tough. She is a tough cookie, especially that latest movie. Superman and Wonder Woman. DC, yep. Marvel, Captain America, Iron Man. You know what? Iron Man is pretty darn cool. I don't know how you kill Iron Man. Honestly, I don't know how you kill him. But anyways, good stuff. So we have different options here, right? And we could have a whole bunch. Wonder Woman, yeah, absolutely. We got a lot of good votes for her. We should even add her in here. So what we got here up the top, a couple different things, right? Convert to HTML, right? That's what we were just, that was a question earlier about that. And a couple other options we have. Copy, delete, your standard fare, edit, view embed code. Set that real quick. See that right there? You just drop that in and that will embed this advanced dynamic content wherever you may go. So you can put it into your site. You can put it into your email. For your site, it ends up being an iframe, right? Just drops it in there. Testing tools, right? You can use this to test. You could say, okay, I chose this. I want to see the result. So you can basically let it cookie you as one of the answers and see what that answer looks like. So it's a great way to just go through to the website itself and be like, okay, how does this look? All right, so a couple quick options. Sweet, let's hit edit real quick. All right, folder, tags, default content. There we go. Well, default content, we didn't say Spider-Man, so let's go ahead and change that. So I just hit edit. There you go. You really should consider choosing a favorite, right? Because this is the default. They haven't chosen one yet. Or they chose one that wasn't part of the options. Now, down here you see the variations, right? Favorite superhero. Variations are based on the value of this field. You just choose the field. Now, notice we have a lot of fields. We have go partying, go skydiving. See, this is a fun place. Favorite superhero. These are all important fields, and you know they're synced up with our Salesforce fields. You know it is in our Salesforce account too. So you sync with that, and then down here, it's just super basic, right? When the favorite superhero is or contains, is a lot more straightforward. We use a drop down in our form. Drop downs are a lot. I recommend doing the drop downs or doing advanced dynamic content. Don't get mushy-mashy with it, because what if they say Spidey? What if they say Spidey? They won't show up, right? So give them drop downs in those options. That's the best way to control field data. Now, if the favorite superhero is Spider-Man, does he have a hyphen? I didn't realize he had a hyphen. I didn't know that. Then you show this. And what you have here, you see the graphic kind of like overreaching a little bit, probably because I shrunk my browser, but you see the option for what happens when they say Spider-Man. You can change that, hit the pencil, and you can change it. Batman, Superman. Now, I saw this earlier because we created this a long time ago, and somebody probably was hating on Iron Man and got rid of the Iron Man image, or maybe it changed wherever it's at. And so I was like, you know what? I could fix this beforehand, but I thought, no, let's fix it together. So I hit the pencil, and what do you know? You're like, where's the window? Well, the window's back up here. So you just got to scroll up a little bit. So they chose their thing, and then the graphic is not there. Well, like a proper cooking show, I did go ahead and upload an Iron Man graphic. So what I did, I'm going kind of fast here. All I did was, your standard, is still there? Nope. And if you get out of that thing, you have to get back into it. So Iron Man, okay, there it is. And it's back up here. All right, so there's a naughty graphic. We get rid of it. We go over here to an actual graphic icon, click on that, and I uploaded an Iron Man graphic into our Pardot account because everyone should do that. There it is. Picked it, select it, hit OK here. Don't skip down to save until you're done. Now it's there, like a proper header for Iron Man for an answer. Hit save, And then now you'll see it down below here, right? So now that's updated. Now, isn't that just the coolest? I might have to vote for Iron Man, but I liked all of your options too. I didn't hear anyone vote for Ant-Man. Nope, no love for Ant-Man. All right, so we did all that, then we hit save. No, you can add another variation down there. That's it. That's straightforward. That's how we do. A couple quick things I want to show everyone. A couple other examples of this. One other one's really cool. When we do emails from our sales team, right? Totally recommend you do this. You can do it for large sales teams, small sales teams. You can do it based on their territory, who's assigned, who's the owner. But we did a very simple thing. This is very cool, right? So it's based on the state of the person filling out the form. And you know that Pardot, or may not know, but hopefully you know now, Pardot can automatically identify state. So this is one of those fields you don't even have to ask. So right away, get rid of anywhere and everywhere you ask state, get rid of it, and country too. Pardot can automatically identify that. All you got to do is turn that thing on under the settings, under the admin settings. Once you do that, you know state. So what's cool is if we're doing a sales follow-up email and an MQL, and we would invite them to schedule a call with us on our calendar, well, if you just sent one email out, whose calendar is it? That doesn't work. So instead, it's the same email, but it dynamically changes the link, right? It's not just the text itself, but there's a link to, oh, Ryan Cheshire, that's funny. Logan, right? So you can see different guys. Who do you all, if you work with Chesh, who have you worked with? Do you know Ari? Who have you guys worked with? Roger, right? So what this does is allows us to drop in a link to say, schedule a time with me. It can be a personal looking email. It can come from Roger. It can come from Logan. But really, Pardot helped them out. And this was actually an idea that our sales team had said, hey, could you help us out with this? We thought, yeah, this is a great use case for Pardot. So we were creating that. Shout out to Christina for creating an awesome advanced dynamic content example. Cool. Let me stop the share and let me hop back into PowerPoint real quick. And then we'll finish this thing off and see if there's any other questions. All right, sharing the screen. Cool. Advanced dynamic content, fun stuff. Let's talk the future for a little bit. Hey, what's more dynamic than a conversation? This has got me really intrigued, right? I think this is in the early stages, the idea of chat, right? So if you've been to CheshireImpact.com, if you haven't, go there now, hang out. You probably have done that already once to be able to get on this webinar. But if not, CheshireImpact.com, and you'll see a little greetings down below. What's cool is if I know who you are, you'll see your name in there. And if you chat with us, this actually ties into, this is Qualified. I don't know if you've used Qualified. People probably heard of Drift or Qualified. In fact, if you already have a chat tool, throw it in the webinar chat. What chat are you using? If you're using chat, if not, which ones have you heard of? That kind of thing. Throw that in the webinar chat. So this is Qualified. And I like these guys because they have this sort of, they really like declared their love for Pardot, right? A lot of tools were like, oh, we love you all. And then the connectors were kind of wishy-washy. This one was like, okay, we love Salesforce, we love Pardot, what's up? And so we're like, oh, let's chat. Drift, okay, yeah, that's a good one too, absolutely. Whatever tool you can use, as long as you get the data into Salesforce, into Pardot, that's the magic. So what I'm intrigued about the idea of a chat is that a lot of times we do these forms, we do all this advanced dynamic content to try to get people to just fill out a form. But it's like taking a voicemail, right? Taking a message. They're ready now, they're engaged now, we got them some Spider-Man memorabilia, and now it's like, cool, our sales team will get back to you. Now we did some cool automated things to try to help them schedule some time. But this is almost like that next step. So I'm really intrigued about this. I'm excited about where it's going. And so it is one of those things. If you don't have a chat tool, hit me up. I'll share some more experiences with you. Maybe we'll do another webinar on it. But it's one of those things that you should look at doing, because it's the ultimate advanced dynamic content. I mean, you can add HTML in there. You can do all sorts of things. But really what I'm intrigued about is the idea of having a live chat happen. And what's interesting about these things is you can choose that, okay, if someone's a cookied visitor, they can have a totally different experience than if you don't know who they are. And the whole idea of a bot, the bot never reaches you. If we know who you are, like if you're a customer and we know who you are, the bot won't ever get to you, because we want to actually talk to you as humans, right? We want to like, oh, let's talk to this person. But if we're not sure who you are, you haven't been cookied yet, you might see a bot or two, just try to find out who you are and to try to qualify you to figure out who should you talk to, right? So there's a lot of stuff to this, and I see this getting tighter and tighter with Pardot as we go. So interesting. Just want to kind of highlight that for people. All sorts of things happening with it. Cool. It's go time. Hey, if you would like a copy of that book, Marketing Automation Unleashed, all you got to do, and it's weird because it's like a double benefit. So it's like a double positive, which in math is still a positive. So if you're interested in doing that assessment called the CSI, all you have to do is type in CSI into the webinar chat or to the Q&A interface, or you can email me, casey@CheshireImpact.com, or you can call me or smoke signal me or whatever. Say hi and just type in CSI. And what we'll do is we'll reach out, we'll schedule time to do that assessment with you and get you that number between 0 and 10 about where you're at with marketing automation and then where you need to go from there, right? Yeah, totally. CSI is awesome. See what's cool about this, right? This is the same idea we're talking about. I don't need to send you to a form, right? Where's the journey in that? No. You're right here. We see your name. We can then reach out and schedule that way. So that's just one quick way, and try considering doing that in your own webinars and your own type of work. So what we'll do is we'll reach out, we'll schedule CSI with you. And after your CSI, you'll have a score and we will send you a book to your quarantine address, wherever you're at. So you can do some reading. And it's a fun book. A lot of people helped out with it, but it has a chapter on every one of these CSIs. So there's a full chapter on advanced dynamic content. So if you want more, then the book's the place to go. And Andy, you already did a CSI. Well, we'll have to reach out to you as well. Yes, it's like Oprah. You get a book, and you get a book, and you get a book. Absolutely. Cool. All right. Oh, here's the other things I was talking about. Different ways to reach me. Hey, shoot me a question anytime. Seriously, we don't need to be, isolated all the time. And if you just have a quick question, shoot me an email. Happy to answer that. Had an email come up about how do you wrangle sales? They want new leads created every time someone raises a hand. And marketing knows that's not a good idea. That'll make duplicates left and right. And so we had a little conversation about it. So shoot me a note if you have any questions about this topic or anything else, or about hiking or skydiving. I'm happy to answer. All right, some resources for you. So every single CSI that we were talking about earlier has a bunch of things happening. We've got webinars every month happening for the CSIs. Even if there's a theme, there's still a CSI webinar. We've had over 4 now. There's over 150 episodes of the Hardcore Marketing Show, which we'll talk about next, and specific experts on each topic. We've also got templates if you're interested, and some build planners and different things to help you with the different types of situations you may be in. Also our own team. So if you haven't worked with Cheshire Impact, we're happy to work with you, share our own experiences with you. If you already work with us, we're not agency people. We're all marketers here. We love doing this stuff. Salesforce as well. And the book in final stages. The book is done. So, hey, 2 podcasts. Has anyone heard these yet? 2 podcasts. If you haven't listened to podcasts, you should listen to podcasts, or try these out. These would be the ones to try out. And the 2 different ones are dramatically different from each other, which is why they need a description. Hardcore Marketing Show, that's my show. I interview really smart marketers and I just learn from them all day, every day. Here's an example. When I met with Hillary Corna, she was the one talking about your customer with the word customer and not about your own salesy terms. 2 pages of notes from chatting with her. So that's what that podcast is all about. Pardot Life Hacks is also an amazing podcast. That's from Jennifer Schneider's. And that is all about the technical details of specific features in Pardot. So I would put like this webinar, because it's a bit about technical stuff, but there's some strategy to it as well. And like the middle, Hardcore Marketing Show is like all strategy, all concepts, and we get some tactical, practical as well. Pardot Life Hacks is like down and dirty, roll your sleeves up, click by click. What do I got to do in Pardot to make this magic happen? They've got some great series that I even learned from. The Connected Campaign series is amazing. There's an article that came from that says like, don't do Connected Campaign in Pardot until you've listened to this or until you've read this blog post. Great stuff. So recommend you check that out. They're on all the platforms. And yeah, all right, next steps. Hey, Cheshire Impact, the one thing I would share about us, sort of the pitch, is that we also do Salesforce, right? Which oftentimes you just have to, because the challenge isn't always in Pardot. It's probably Pardot talking to Salesforce there's some weird workflow that someone created 10 years ago, we're happy to hop in there and help it out, help you figure those things out. So we are here to help you with Pardot and Salesforce, execute campaigns, do workshops, help you align with sales, you name it, and we have fun doing it. Cool. Need I say more? Hey, Q&A guys, we'll hit stop on the recording and we will get to any questions if you have them.